Welcome to the introduction to our financial accounting FA course. Thank you for joining me and also thank you for choosing us. This introductory video is really just a guide to what's included in the course and indeed the emphasis that I think that we should take. It also includes some sort of advice, if you will, in relation to study technique and indeed exam technique, really ensuring your pass in this FA financial accounting course. The first area of 4 parts is really just an outline of what's included within the ACCA Study Hub in relation to these 18 financial accounting chapters. Really, the course starts with an introduction to financial reporting and indeed financial accounting. So if you will, that sort of gives you an idea of the regime in which financial accounting, financial statements, and of course, financial reporting exists. So really we're talking about compliance. We're talking about what companies and indeed organizations need to produce on an annual basis, and indeed how users or stakeholders will be interested in what companies produce. So really we're talking about profit and loss and indeed assets. In essence, this early chapter on financial reporting sort of provides you with the environment in which this course sort of operates. We move from the sort of first chapter into a really crucial area, an area that's crucial for your success, double entry. And indeed, the early chapters in the FA course are really all about being able to record transactions. Now, I can't emphasize enough to you how important this double entry rule is. You know, different students have different experiences and background. Some students may be familiar with double entry bookkeeping. Some may not be familiar at all. But the bottom line is, within the FA course, it's so important for you to have a good understanding of how double entry works. In essence, what we're talking about is the idea that every transaction has 2 parts. It has a debit and a credit. And what we've got to be able to do prior to the exam is to be able to view transactions and to record the debit and the credit correctly. We move from that area further into a detailed synopsis of various types of transactions, whether or not they relate to sales or purchases, bank transactions, etc., etc. So in essence, the early part of the course, leading towards the middle, is all about how companies record information in the general ledger or the nominal ledger. In essence, from that point on, we move towards accounting standards. Now, we'll come across standards in various parts of the course, particularly towards the middle. What's important in relation to accounting standards is for you to get just a broad feel on the different possibilities in relation to different types of business transactions. For example, inventories or perhaps post-transaction events. In essence, the accounting standards area gives you an opportunity to do some rote learning. I'm talking about definitions. I'm talking about conditions. I'm talking about different options in terms of treatment. And of course, finally, disclosure. In other words, disclosure within financial accounts. We move from there into another key part, really, of the FA course, and that's the consolidated financial statements area. And as with double entry, I would emphasize this chapter, chapter 17, as being crucial to your success in this exam. For me, the consolidated financial statements area is probably the most technically difficult area of the course. And it's a very, very long chapter. A word of warning here, if you find it difficult, it's important to just input more time. What we can't do in relation to the consolidated financial statements chapter, even though it's just one chapter, is we can't ignore it because it will feature as a significant part of your FA exam. The final chapter leads us to ratio analysis or financial analysis, chapter 18. And indeed, in that chapter, you'll hear me emphasize within the mind map video that really it's important from two perspectives. Number one, questions in the exam, obviously, but also if you're planning to pursue a career in financial accounting or in finance and even management accounting, the area of being able to analyze a set of accounts, so to look at a statement of financial position, to look at a statement of profit and loss account, and be able to take a view on the company's current position in terms of profitability, liquidity, gearing, it's such an important skill. So I'd certainly remind you when you come to that chapter, think about practical, real life, because that skill is key to success for a finance person. So that gives you a synopsis, an idea of what's in the 18 chapters on the ACCA Study Hub. I want to now sort of move to the resources that you have in front of you. In other words, the myriad of areas that you could start on. And the resources come in several different parts. Let's really start at the beginning. We have the ACCA Study Hub. Within each of the 18 chapters, you have obviously a lot of narrative material, a lot of activities or exercises, and certainly quizzes. That area, for most people, will be the starting point. Outside of that, we know on the Study Hub that we have the practice platform, which includes obviously exams, mock exams, past exams, etc. The next area of resource is where we come in. It's the mind map videos and indeed the mind map PDFs. So really what we've done is we've shortened or accelerated your learning by breaking down the course into a set of videos using mind maps. With each mind map, you'll have a printed copy, so you'll be able to add to those mind map branches as you see fit. Outside of that, obviously, we have the OT practice section on the ACCA Study Hub. In essence, what you've got there is exam standard questions covering each of the 18 chapters. So in essence, I guess the resources available to you in order to be able to pass this exam are really three-part. We've got the hub, including the practice platform, if you will. We've got the mind map videos and indeed the mind map PDFs. And indeed, outside of that, we've obviously got the OT questions as well. Now, the reason that I labor the resources is because I think that your tactics or your approach to those resources is directly linked to your chances of success. Now, in terms of possible approaches, I think that you've got two ways to look at the resources that you have. Let's call them Plan A and Plan B. So, if I was an FA student just considering Plan A would be simply to start at the beginning and to go through each of the resources in order. What I mean by that is literally you open up the Study Hub with Chapter 1 and you literally go from chapter to chapter, reading through, undertaking all the exercises, all the activities, and all the quizzes. You get to the end of each chapter and then you go straight through to our mind map videos and indeed our mind map PDFs to consolidate your learning. So that's two parts so far with this Plan A. Now, I think that Plan A is going to suit most students. The third part of Plan A, and this is just my suggestion because you'll approach things in your own way, is to recap. In other words, to look back on parts 1 and parts 2 and say to yourself, what are the areas within the 18 chapters or indeed that I've noticed within the mind map videos that I feel weak on? What are the areas that still don't sit well with me? So I think this third area is about really consolidating on areas that are difficult. Once you've done that third part in this Plan A, what I think you should be going to is the OT practice questions. And again, we've provided synopsis or summarized videos for you on a series of OT questions in each of the 18 chapters. Once you've completed that section for each of the chapters, then I would suggest your final area within Plan A is to go to the practice platform, to start on past exam questions and indeed mock exams. So if you will, this Plan A is a very comprehensive approach, starting at the beginning, going through each of the sections with the Study Hub first, then the mind map videos, mind map PDFs, recapping, OT questions, and then mock exams. Now, Plan B is similar, but Plan B may well suit a student who has financial accounting experience prior to the start of this course. Maybe it's a student that works in financial accounting, or perhaps has had studies previously where financial accounting was emphasized, so perhaps they understand double entry bookkeeping or recording transactions or possibly even consolidated financial accounts. So really Plan B, if you will, is a fast track approach to passing this exam. And all that it entails is simply skipping the first part. In other words, skipping the area where you literally go through the ACCA Study Hub, chapter by chapter, page by page, activity by activity. So really, if you will, this would shorten the amount of time that you need to get through the full course and to get towards the practice platform. So Plan B is certainly an option. As I suggested, I think most students are going to go with Plan A. But if you've got good experience, if you're confident, if you feel that you have a grasp of financial accounting already, then perhaps Plan B is an option for you. And really the difference between each of those plans is really time input. Certainly I would say broadly in a 6 or 7 week period, Plan A can be done, and certainly Plan B a little bit shorter. Okay, so let's now move into the next section of this video. We've covered broadly what's in the course. We've covered the resources, if you will. Let me take you through some sort of guidance in terms of study technique and indeed exam technique. Now, I think the key point here is that in terms of the advice that I would give you now, it's really based on my experience of teaching ACCA FA students and indeed my own experience of study and the guidance that we see from the examiner's report. In other words, the feedback from the examiner. I think the key point is this. When we're doing professional exams, the first do, if you will, and I'll start with the do's and then go through the don'ts, is you've got to get organized. You've got to organize your week and organize your time. You know, there's a certain time commitment, whether you choose Plan A or Plan B, to passing exams. And I would say on average with most students, I would say that the FA course ballpark is probably around about 10 to 12 study hours each week. So you've got to choose when you're going to study, how you're going to study, and indeed where you're going to study. So the first key point under the do's is let's get organized on day one and indeed plan your time, plan your week. The next point is an important one for me based on my interact with students over the years. I've been teaching ACCA subjects for nearly 15 years now, is just to recognize in terms of learning material, for me, the best way to learn is to do. So learning is doing. The reason I say that is that some students may emphasize passive activities, i.e. reading. The key point for you as you move from chapter to chapter, from mind map video to mind map video, from OT question to OT question, is to keep doing and indeed learn by doing. The next key point, I think, is something that came to me after some years of teaching, and indeed certainly relevant to my own studies as well, is something that I'd refer to as the perfection trap. Now, what I mean by that is there's a tendency, I think, for students across all levels of the ACCA, when they're learning a subject, is to think that they need to be perfect on each of the areas within the syllabus. Well, I don't agree with that. I think that what we need to do in order to get through any paper, whether it's financial accounting or anything else, is just to have reasonably good knowledge across the board avoid the idea that if you're coming across a technically difficult area, that you absolutely need to be an expert. You need to be perfect in every area to be able to pass the exam. I don't think that's the case. I mean, after all, when we consider the pass mark is 50%. It's not 100%. So you're not expected to go into the exam and to be perfect. So don't get frustrated and don't think that just because an area is difficult and you have to spend 10 or 20 extra hours being absolutely perfect at it. You don't. We just need a solid understanding of as many areas as possible. The final point is really on a personal level. It's so important in your ACCA studies, including within this FFA exam, is for you to believe that you can pass and to believe that the effort that you're putting in is going to get you towards success. I think having a positive mindset is very, very important. So do believe in yourself and work hard and you'll get through. Let's talk finally in this introductory video about the don'ts. There are some don'ts. First things first, in relation to the don'ts is procrastination or delay. You know, we have a certain amount of time to get through the material for the financial accounting course. And what I'd encourage you not to do is to delay starting or to delay anything, really. I think that it's key to take action and to take action early. As I mentioned earlier on, around about 6 weeks, maybe 7 weeks or thereabouts is enough to get through really any of the ACCA subjects. So I'd encourage you to take action, start early. The next key area really is note making. For me, note making is okay, but you'll note from the resources I mentioned within section 2 is to some extent we've provided you with a set of notes for this financial accounting course in the form of mind map PDFs. So those mind map PDFs you'll see have basically broken down each of the 18 chapters into what we feel you need to emphasize. So if you will, they're summary notes across the whole syllabus. Now, of course, you can make some notes, but the reason that I mention this second point under the don'ts is that what I've seen students do in the past is spend too much time making notes. So, for example, going to the Study Hub and trying to summarize each of the 18 chapters, that's going to take a lot of time. And indeed, I think in terms of the benefit that you'll get for it, it will be limited. So be careful with note-taking. What we need to do, as I said up top in relation to the do's, we need to be spending as much time doing rather than passive activities like reading or indeed making notes. Outside of that, the next key point is really the avoidance of question practice. The avoidance, if you will, of failure. I think it's a key point, although it sounds a bit strange within the ACCA qualification, is that if you want to get through the financial accounting paper, and indeed other papers, as quickly as possible, preferably on a first-time pass, one of the keys to success is to fail. In other words, to be doing activities, to be doing quizzes, to be doing OT questions, to be doing mock exams, and perhaps underperforming in them and learning from that experience. That's certainly one of the best pieces of advice, in my opinion, that you're going to get in relation to this particular financial accounting course and indeed all of your ACCA subjects going forward. Okay, so I hope that that made sense. Thank you for listening to me, and indeed again, thank you for choosing us. Good luck with your studies and good luck with your financial accounting exam. Cheers.